Hi, greetings, friends. It is Friday, June 7th, and I'm here with your weekly Golden Nugget. This is actually take two of this Golden Nugget. I recorded it yesterday and had such connectivity, technical difficulty issues that I had to erase the video because the end of it was all pixelated and weird, and it wasn't fun to watch the end, although there was really good information throughout the rest of it. So I am trusting that this version of the same information is going to be even better than it was yesterday, and that the right people will come to this message. So the title for today's Golden Nugget is Stay Steady, which is also the name that the council gave to the poem that was written on the reading that was taken. So for any of you that are new fans to Full Awakening, every week I do these free videos. I try to give you a little bit of content, a little bit of inspiration to see you through your week. Some cosmic insight that was a reading that I do with my council upon the question of what does the collective need right now? What is the collective experience? And this is geared directly towards those of you who will be watching this video. So hopefully this resonates. First, I'm going to read the poem that is the kind of culmination of the reading. So I receive information from Spirit in emotion, movement, pantomime, story, and then eventually the last level of that integration for myself is in word and poetry form. So I'm going to kind of deconstruct that process for you by reading you the poem first and then explaining a little bit more about what the image was and any other insight that I can bring. And the last thing I'm going to do is show you, I always try to keep this a secret from you guys, the tarot card reading that I did. It's a 4-card spread this time. And the most hilarious part is, of course, I have no ability to choose the still shot that they show of this video when they post the video. And somehow, if you look back through the history of these weekly Golden Nuggets, like half of them, it's the front of the card that they choose. I don't know who they are, the gnomes that live inside the computer, inside the cloud, I don't know. They always choose the reveal of the card. So I don't know why I try to tease you guys with the backs of the cards, because you know this is not going to be the still shot they choose as the title shot. Anyway, okay, this is the Stay Steady poem. Let's read that first, and then we'll talk about the meaning. Rising, as if from the dead, throat rising above the heart, true expression being called, above life force, above all, giving life to form once again. This urge to emerge, to speak, to express, rips from your form, rips you down the center, sloughing off the old and making way for the delicate, vulnerable truth within. Don't shrink back when outside forces move in to threaten this soft newness. Stay steady and allow yourself to harden into a form informed by a deeper truth. The truth of who you are and how you know. Yes, very interesting. There are a few things in the writing of this that surprised me. I did point out in the video yesterday, and I'll point out again, that the very ending I thought was going to be the truth of who you are and what you know. But when I was writing it, my counsel distinctly said how you know. And so that reverberation of the dissonance between what I thought the word calculation was going to be and what the actual word vibration was, the meaning of that is important. So how you know, how you intuit. And this is something I have particular interest in because, you know, as I give you guys a kind of rundown of all the layers through which I receive intuition, I think this is a topic that I go into a lot with my students and with my colleagues, is that there are so many of us in the transformational community, and ever more so in the mainstream community and in collective consciousness as we rise together into a higher state of being, who are very intuitive beings. We are naturally intuitive beings, perhaps, and there's parts of our mind and there's parts of our spectrum that are capable of ever widening and accepting in more levels of information. And I think one of the limitations is that most of us don't believe that we're intuitive, or if we are intuitive, we're not quite sure how we receive that information. And so I really want to offer up this idea to sort of broaden your own sense of how information comes in, because in essence, intuition is your body's ability to translate the wavelength of energy that's coming towards you into some sort of meaningful form for you. And so we have our physical senses, our hearing, our sight, our smell, our taste, our touch, our emotional sense. Like these are all our physical body's ways of knowing. But you know, the intuitive senses sometimes are even more than that. So there's also, for me, there's a sense of movement, there's a sense of play, there's a sense of interaction. And all these things sort of can weave together to create different versions of output, different versions of expression, of intuition. And so I just want to put that out there. Hopefully that's clear and that means something to you guys. Feel free in the comments to start a discussion about how you receive intuitive information, right? Because we see a lot of people who are like clairaudient, who hear voices, right? Or clair visual, you know, I'm not sure if that's the word, but people who see visions, you know, who see different spectrums of reality, different dimensions. We don't hear a lot about all of these other ways that people sense, and maybe the ways that those senses kind of build upon each other. So I want to open that door for you all, and I want you to share, because the more that we share our stories of what our experience is, the more we allow ourselves to elevate as a group, right? Because then we see what's possible, we see that we're not alone, and that we're not weird in the way that we experience energy and reality, and that just opens a lot of doors for us. So I'll put that out there. Let's see, what else might want to come forward from the reading itself? I think the other significant part about that, you know, the image, this is a very symbolic image for me. So that sort of lifting up by the throat image. And in this particular vision, it was really the person being lifted up by their throat looked dead. Like their form looked completely deflated. And so this sort of feeling of being risen up by the neck is symbolically repetitive within my internal channeling world, as being symbolic of like that truth, divine truth that's trying to be expressed, right? So that was expected and unexpected in this vision. I think the part that is also significant that I want to mention is this idea that once we slough off the new, and I think that we're going through a global collective experience of this right now, where we're entering into the new, many of us that I speak to, and we're sloughing off the old shell, we're releasing what came before. What we find is, that's a tumultuous process, right? If you watched the Golden Nugget from last week, that tumultuous tumbling within the tumbler of the stone that is us is this sort of chaotic, traumatic, even if asked for, change, right? Like even if we're going through a change that is what we desire and have longed for, the actual process of going through that transformational process is intense and arduous and chaotic and hard sometimes. And so to admit that. And then also, as we slough off the old, what we find inside maybe is this delicate, beautiful truth, but that delicate, beautiful truth might be very vulnerable, right? Like very delicate and unhardened, right? And so the image of all these other beings and energies kind of moving in towards that vulnerability, which is kind of that vacuum that's created, right? And the title of this whole pulse report, I'm calling it a pulse report. That's what we used to do. It was called pulse reports. Anyway, this whole golden nugget is to stay steady, right? Is to stay in that truth, to not allow yourself to react to that feeling of energies coming in towards your delicate, vulnerable new self, but to stay in that feeling of this is my truth, this is my expression, this is the newness that I'm holding. And eventually in that truth, you start to reharden into a new form. So you start to calcify, or not calcify, but really create a solid foundation for yourself, right? And you want that solid foundation, that solid form to be undistorted. You want it to be clear as much as possible. But so be aware of the instinct to possibly maneuver and react to that feeling of energies coming in to threaten that newness, okay? All right, so now to our reading. Our reading was very interesting. I tried to pull 3 cards, which was the instruction from Spirit, and the last card I picked had a hidden card underneath it. But when I lay out all these cards, it's very clear how they go. And I'm going to go through this rather quickly because there's so many of them. So the first one that I picked was the High Priestess. And I love this card every time. Okay, the High Priestess. We're getting a lot of glare from the window. Let's see if I can't really help that. But if you can see, she's sitting in a doorway. And the High Priestess is, she's also dipping her toe in the water, and you can see the triple goddess, like the moon and crescent moons. That symbol, the same symbol she's wearing on her head, is in the water. The High Priestess is the gatekeeper to the initiation. So the initiation is that dark space beyond, right? And we were talking last night in a group class that I'm teaching about the definition of initiation. When Spirit talks to me about initiation, they always say, an initiation isn't an initiation unless there is a chance you will not survive. So it is inherently something that is somewhat dangerous and takes you beyond where you thought you could be, takes you beyond your limitations. So the High Priestess is the gatekeeper of that space between one thing and another, between the old and the new, between the water and the land, between all these different elements, right? She is the space between, she's the opening, and she is inviting you into that initiation. She's inviting you into that transformational space. So within that, we have these two other cards. This one got pulled pretty immediately. It's the Eight of Wands, which is the fire element. If you can see this man, ugh, so much glare. Sorry, you guys. So this man is running into the wind. The wind is blowing in his face, and this cat, which is in a lot of the pictures for the wands, is watching. And interestingly for me, in the way that I work with the compass and the cardinal directions and elements, we pair east with fire, and it's also symbolic of the future calling us. And so running towards the east, in my mind, and my interpretation of this, is like running towards your future. And this feeling of running into the wind, and still this urgency and this force of will that moves us forward, and that directing force is really significant in this card. This card also speaks of like an urgency of time. And so the Eight of Wands is linked to the autumnal equinox and to that time of preparation right before the winter comes. And so I've been feeling this a lot for various reasons, but there's this message of like, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. Like there's something that we're running into that is, that is mysterious and on the other side. Okay. The next card, which was the hidden card and clearly wanted to go in the center with the Eight of Wands, is the Five of Swords. And swords are the air element and linked to ideas, concepts. This Five of Swords card is really interesting because it is about conflict and about balance. And so if you'll remember, part of the High Priestess's job is balance of opposites, balance of between here and there, the space between these two things. And this card speaks about the line drawn in the sand, right? The line between opposites. And instead of it separating these two figures, it is connecting them. So I don't know how well we can get in this pixelated picture, but this line pointing towards two people that they're both drawing, and this sword stuck into the sand, right? And so I just want you to think about that. I want you to think about conflict and turmoil in your own life and how you can create a bridge, a line that connects rather than a line that disconnects, because that is the difference between love and fear, proceeding with love and fear. Proceeding with love is creating connections. Proceeding with fear is creating disconnections. So I just want to put that out there. So these are the two content messages for the initiation itself. And then the last card we picked, which was hiding the Five of Swords, is the High Priest. And so, of course, these guys are our bookends, right? And the High Priest is the one standing at the gateway on the other side of the initiation. So he's on the other side. He is welcoming you as you exit, and he's helping you. Do you see how she has like a closed book of wisdom, and he has an open book of wisdom? And so what his job is to help you take the direct experience of the initiation itself and to process it into action and to help to integrate it into your life. So it's taking that direct experience and processing it through your whole body and expressing it in the way that you live and the way that you move forward. So they're really, the absolute perfect guides to have at the beginning and end of an initiation period, which I think we're in. So that's my message, you guys. I hope that you receive this and that this helps you and that you are having a lovely beginning of your weekend. And I hope that you are kind to yourself and kind to each other as we're all going through a lot. And even if what we're experiencing is what we really desire, take a moment, slow it down, take some deep breaths, and take care of yourself. Okay, do something kind for yourself, because even much desired changes come with stress and chaos and turmoil. Okay, lots of love to you for everything that you are and everything that you bring, and I'll see you next week. Okay, bye.